Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast, brought to you by big4accountingfirms.com and the Big Four Accounting Firms YouTube channel. Before we get started, just wanted to remind everybody to support us if you have a chance or if you can. Even $1 helps, and we have a link in the description to a website called Buy Me a Coffee. It's just a way to donate to us and support us. Again, any amount is helpful so that we can keep putting out content. And there's also other ways for you to support us in the show notes to this podcast or on YouTube in the description. In today's podcast, I wanted to provide some tips for people to survive out there. The Big Four accounting firms are facing tough times right now, and you have to be able to survive during these times. We've put together some tips on how to survive during this new normal, because that's the phrase that everybody's using, right? So I might as well use it here as well. And I actually put together a course about this, but since people don't have much money right now, might as well just provide some of it for free. So the first thing that you have to do during this new normal and the path forward is going to be using remote tools and working remotely. You must learn to use technologies like WebEx, Microsoft Teams, and Google Hangouts. You should also learn Zoom. Many people are obsessed with Zoom right now, and it's very popular in society, and I believe this is because of marketing and advertising. However, Zoom is not extremely secure for professional settings yet. So don't be an expert in Zoom and expect it to transfer to the Big Four world right away. The Big Four have not adopted Zoom yet. And this is because all the work the Big Four do must remain confidential. And Zoom has not shown the ability to do this yet. And I'm sure that Zoom will eventually be able to meet this standard someday. So it is worth learning this technology if you still have a number of years before you join the Big Four. For example, I remember when the iPhone first came out. It wasn't as secure as the BlackBerry, and many people thought that it would never be as secure as the BlackBerry. Boy, were they wrong, right? Like everybody uses an iPhone right now. And that is why I think it is worth learning Zoom. Zoom has enough steam behind it for it to one day be used by the Big Four. And the Big Four also love jumping on bandwagons. So I think Zoom will one day be popular. When using the software mentioned before, you need to be familiar with the following tasks. You need to learn how to send out invites. You need to make sure those invites have links and dial-ins in case people choose to dial in, because not everybody is familiar with the face-to-face software and they don't trust it, so they still like using the dial-ins. Like I know that was true for me when I first started using conferencing software. Another thing you need to learn how to do is learn how to use webcams and make sure they're turned on. You should also probably try to get good at lighting and making yourself look decent, and making sure that you don't look sloppy on the camera. Another thing you need to learn how to do when using this remote software is you need to learn how to mute yourself and how to mute others as well. You need to also learn how to turn your webcam on and off. You need to learn how to share your screen with others. For example, when you're presenting on these conference softwares, you're not always going to be just speaking to a camera. Sometimes there's a spreadsheet that you'll be sharing with others, because a lot of people think there's a Zoom meeting or a web conference and it's only when you have to meet with multiple people. But sometimes you're just going to want to meet with one person on your team, and you want to be able to share your screen right away. You want to be able to give review notes, especially now that everybody's working remotely. You're going to have to give review notes via the software, so you have to learn how to share your screen. You also have to learn how to turn control over to another presenter, because you might not always be the person presenting and you might have to give it over to somebody else, so you have to learn how to do that as well. So these are the tools and the skills that you're going to need to learn as far as working remotely. Another thing that you need to do in order to adapt to the new normal is improve your software skills. You need to learn new software tools that are geared towards automation. I've suggested in previous posts and podcasts about technologies that you should learn. And these main technologies that you should try to learn are Alteryx, Tableau, and UiPath. We have podcasts and posts about that, so make sure to check those out. And there are other tools and technologies that you have to learn before you become proficient at these tools I just mentioned. Learn about those technologies as well. And I'm speaking about things like Microsoft Excel, PowerPoint, and other tools as well. And to learn UiPath, it might help to learn a little bit of coding as well. Another thing that you're going to need to do to survive in the new normal is, or rather that you don't want to do, is isolate. Many people during this time period think it is okay to lay low during this pandemic. We're all working from home, so people think that we should just lay low to avoid coming up during layoff talks, right? You're wrong. You need to stay connected with your supervisors and performance coaches. To do this, you need to schedule status meetings. Your superiors are most likely going to be disconnected as well. Trust me, this happens when you work remotely. Your supervisors also like to lay low. Just because they're above you doesn't mean they're super good at staying connected. And you will impress them if you schedule status calls. People also get bored during this time period and look forward to connecting with other people. You should take the first step and put some time on people's calendars. This will also help you build a strong network, which is important for success. Another thing you need to do is pay attention to your workload. Are you getting enough work? This is a key question that you should be asking yourself. If you aren't getting enough work, then you might be laid off soon. You don't need to be worried if you've only been without work for a short period of time. However, if your group has not had work in a few months, you should be worried. You should check whether you have the ability to get your utilization above 75 to 80%. If you don't have enough hours left in the year to get you above 75%, then you should be concerned. You should start looking for other jobs in other groups or in other companies. Now, as far as looking for other jobs, that's another skill that you might need to learn during this time period. If you do have to look for other jobs, you should focus on industry jobs, and this means jobs at clients outside of the Big Four. The world is in a crazy place right now, but equity markets are actually doing pretty well. And this means that there are lots of public companies out there with excess capital. They can invest money into growing their companies. Many of them will have to build out finance departments to meet growing needs of their companies. And this means they will be hiring additional accountants because of this. What this means for you is that there are tons of opportunities in industry that are going to be coming up. Even though it's a bad economy and people are losing their jobs, trust me, there's plenty of companies out there looking for accountants. And why do I like industry so much right now? I like it because they don't have a utilization focus. You just have to do your work. When you work in industry, you might not get a bunch of promotions, but you will have a good, stable job for a longer period of time than you would at the Big Four accounting firms. The Big Four accounting firm, there's a lot more pressure on you to get promoted much faster. Another thing that you have to learn during this time period is how to calm yourself, how not to panic. It is easy to get anxious and overthink the bad things that could happen to you, but you need to learn how to stay calm. You don't need to be busy every second of every day. This is a common misconception. And so people, when they're working remotely, will be at their desks just tapping their fingernails and making themselves anxious unnecessarily. They think if they go a second without working, that somebody's going to figure it out. You have to learn how to last over the long haul of your career. You're going to have a long career. You don't need to be perfect the whole way through. You're going to have ups and downs, so don't psych yourself out. The people that are the most successful in the Big Four are the people that stick around. And I know this seems like common sense, but trust me, most people don't know this, and most people don't listen to this. So many people leave the Big Four firms that all you need to do to be successful is actually just stick around. You need to do all the other things I mentioned above. But if you don't panic, then you have a really strong chance of being successful. Most people in the Big Four look at the short term. They want to be promoted 4 times in 5 to 10 years. Now, why does 10 years matter so much over a 30-year or 40-year career? It shouldn't. You should be mapping out your career over the long term. Build relationships today that will last you the rest of your career. Focus on that. Focus on helping others during this time period. Don't worry only about yourself. Think of the long term. That'll help you not panic. If you're only thinking about today, if you're only thinking about next year, if you're only thinking about the next few months, then you'll panic yourself. So think about the long term and you'll last longer. So those are the tips in today's podcast. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and support us if you can. Thanks for listening.